This episode is sponsored by Chapman and Company. Welcome to the Startup Spotlight series hosted by Mug.News. In this show, we highlight startups throughout Middle America who are supporting their community through diversity, innovation, and creativity. I am your host, Caitlin Clays, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's Spotlight. Welcome to Startup Spotlight, where we highlight impressive startups throughout the Midwest that help support their community. I am your host, Caitlin Clays, and here with me today is Greg León, the owner and executive chef of Amilinda, a Spanish and Portuguese inspired restaurant based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Greg, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us, or inviting me to be here.
Absolutely. So I figured we'd just jump right in. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about Amorlinda and your story, how you got started?
So we're a small, independently owned Spanish and Portuguese inspired restaurant. We opened in our current form or location August 1st of 2015. Previous to that, we had been a pop-up restaurant from December of 2013 to January of 2015. I moved to Milwaukee actually after living in California for 18 years. I came to visit, really liked it, and decided to stay. Mm-hmm. And so that's a little bit of our story. We're only open for dinner. Right now, we're only open Thursday through Saturday. In the before times, as I like to refer to the pre-pandemic times, we were open 5 nights a week, Tuesday through Saturday. Also only serving dinner. Right before the pandemic hit, we were getting ready to open for lunch and brunch, but that didn't happen. But we're still here, and we're very grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. So you say that, you came to the Midwest and you're like, oh, this is the place for me. What was it about it that just made you feel like this was the one?
Well, I really like Milwaukee. I came at the end of August. I think if I would have come to visit in the winter, this might be a different story. You might not be interviewing me because I'm not a fan of the winter. But the fact that I'm still here almost 10 years later is a testament to how much I love Milwaukee, that I'm willing to put up with these 19 months of cold weather that we have here. I just really like the city. I thought it was really pretty. People seemed super nice. It was very manageable. It was affordable. And it had a great food community. Like the food scene here really surprised me. So I figured it would be a fun place to put some roots down and open a restaurant.
Definitely. So you are Spanish and Portuguese inspired. So I was then wondering, what gave you the idea for your business and opening the restaurant?
Oh, it's something that I always wanted to do. I think when I started cooking back in '94, that was always the goal, was to own my own restaurant. I first started doing pastry because I thought that's what I wanted to do. And, I enjoy it and I still do it, but it's not like, I really like the energy and the hustle and the bustle of a busy Friday night in a restaurant. And you don't normally get that kind of energy when you're doing pastries because you're usually there in the morning working by yourself. So, I then moved to the savory side and I was like, I'll do French food because I really like it. And then in '97, through this weird coincidence, I was able to travel to Spain. That was my first time going to Spain, and just fell in love with the food and the culture, and then the whole relationship they have with food and sharing food really spoke to me. So I figured this was the kind of cuisine I was going to do. Then many years later, I got connected with a Portuguese chef, and same thing, it really spoke to me. So I figured let's do something that represents the Iberian Peninsula.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds a lot of inspiration, enjoying like culture and community. So then I was wondering, what are your company's goals?
My company goals as a restaurant?
As a restaurant, or for the people that come to visit for an amazing dinner.
Okay. We just want them to come in and feel relaxed. We feel like our job's done when we look out to the dining room and see people full and smiling, and you hear the laughing and the chatter. That's when we know we've done a good job. When people are leaving and you can see it in their face. Just want people to come in and have a good time, hopefully relax, enjoy the company of their friends or family, or maybe their own company if they're dining by themselves. And then feel that we have a lot of people tell us that they feel like they're in my home, or they also tell us they feel like they're somewhere in Europe, especially Spain or Portugal. So that makes me really happy when I hear that. I've had people tell me that if a Portuguese grandma opened a restaurant, it would be Amilinda. And I think that's just like the greatest compliment ever.
Mm-hmm.
Given the fact that I'm not a grandmother and I'm not Portuguese. So, I'll take it though.
Absolutely. So then a question then is, do you have a memory or a highlight in your head where you're of a guest or someone speaking to you about how much they enjoyed? Is there any ideas that come to mind?
I can't think of one specific, and I know it sounds horrible, but I can't. We've served thousands of guests in the 6 years we've been open. We have had people get married at the restaurant, which was great. We had somebody have their first date and then come and get engaged there and then come in to have dinner after their wedding. So stuff like that, it's always, that stuff really sticks in your mind. But, we're very lucky. Customers seem to really like us and like what we're doing and like our food. So we get to hear, we're lucky because we get to hear really good feedback constantly, which makes us very happy, which again, it brings a sense of joy to us, knowing that we have done something that's bringing somebody else a little bit of joy for that, hour and a half, 2 hours that they're with us visiting.
Mm-hmm. That sounds so sweet. I love weddings. I love seeing people happy like that. So then my question is, you're definitely helping your community with the wedding venue and like the food and everything. So I was wondering, what else do you do to help support your community that you're with?
So, from the get-go, my thoughts with opening this, if it wasn't because of the help and support of like the culinary community in Milwaukee, but also like the general food community, patrons, and other restaurateurs, Amorlinda would have never come to fruition. Nell Benton from the National didn't know me the day I went and talked to her about wanting to do a pop-up at a restaurant, and immediately she said yes. So I've always felt, since we moved to our brick and mortar and opened our doors, that I was now in a position to help other people. So we've done countless numbers of pop-ups. We've had other restaurants come and do their startups at Amorlinda, which is always super rewarding. We've done a lot of collab dinners with other chefs to raise money for the Human Rights Campaign, local dog rescues, the local ASPCA, Meta House. We've gone and cooked at other organizations. So we've cooked the Meta House, which is a home for women who are seeking to leave abusive relationships. We've done a lot of stuff. We've gone and cooked for the homeless at Typica, New Jersey. Did that every year for the holidays. And we just had a fundraiser on Pride weekend for a home for homeless LGBT youth. But then all of last year, what we did, and it was kind of, it was a win-win situation. So with the pandemic, we closed down and we were only doing to-go, which really wasn't paying the bills. So we first were hooked up with Caitlin Cullen of the Tandem, who had this whole program with World Central Kitchen, where she would contract restaurants to provide 100, 200 meals a weekend. Those meals would go out to the community for people in need who, either lost their job or weren't making enough money during the pandemic to feed themselves and their family. And then the restaurants would get paid a certain amount per dish. So we did that for all of last year up until like probably February, March of this year. We also started a program with our friend Pastor Karen, doing that same sort of thing. We found 11 restaurants, Amorlinda being one of them, that would provide 100 meals every Saturday or every second Saturday. And then through fundraising, we pay the restaurants $10 a meal. So then we're also helping the restaurants stay open and pay their bills while feeding the community. God, what else have we done? This past year, we've done a lot. We've always done a lot of that kind of stuff since we've opened, but the past year and a half, we've really done a lot. We fed workers at the VA hospital. We fed first responders. We fed firefighters. And again, it was a win-win situation because we're getting to feed these people who do so much for our community. And in exchange, we're getting some money that's allowing us to keep our doors open and the lights on.
Mm-hmm. You have really gone above and beyond, really, with LGBTQ support, in addition to everything you've done during COVID, pre and post as well. So, thank you so much for sharing kind of that story and how you've been assisting and helping and giving back. So you mentioned like when you were getting started in Milwaukee, how did Milwaukee provide some resources to help you get on your feet when you were starting up?
Milwaukee, when I first got here and I started meeting different chefs and restaurant owners, coming from a city like San Francisco, it's very competitive. there might be friends amongst the chefs community, but it's not something like I've seen here. When we first, as I said, when I spoke to Nell about wanting to do a pop-up at a restaurant, she's like, absolutely. And my favorite story about her is, we did the first pop-up. She came in and had dinner, and we had prearranged that we were going to pay her a certain amount of money to use a restaurant on a Saturday night. And so we go in on Sunday to give her, the money for the booze, the alcohol sales, because that would go to her because she owns the liquor license, and give her the money. We had agreed on paying her to use her restaurant on a Saturday night. I'm sitting there eating breakfast with my former partner, and she comes up and she hands me the envelope. She's like, I can't take the $140 that you're supposed to pay me to use my restaurant. I want you to hang on to that because I really believe you and your food's amazing. And Milwaukee hasn't seen anything like this, and just save it to open your restaurant. So we went back and forth, and she finally allowed me to pay her $70 every time I used the restaurant, because it just had to, it was the right thing to do. I'm using your space, let me pay you. But a lot of stories like that, people were really great. We got a lot of support from the local press too. And then through that, other chefs would reach out and say, hey, I've got a great plumber that can help you with the build out of the restaurant, or somebody to clean your hood, or these are my sales reps. They're great. I'm going to send them your way. So it was, at first I was like, well, why are people being so nice, and what do you want? But it is that Midwest kind of sensibility. People really want to help. And, there's this sense amongst the restaurant owners here in Milwaukee that when one of us is successful, we're all successful. When somebody comes to Milwaukee and eats at any of our restaurants and has a really good experience, they're going to go back to their, neighborhood, or they're going to go back to their city and say, oh my God, I went to Milwaukee and I had great food. And therefore it's going to bring more people into town and, more business for all of us.
Mm-hmm. So definitely raising up everyone, working together, being inclusive. And then, and so then my other question is advice. What advice do you have for other people who are looking to start up and they're at those beginning stages?
Well, if you're starting up a restaurant, I would say really think about it hard. It's not something you want to get into lightly. It's not, in the 18 plus years I've had working in this industry, I've had the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you look at it, of working for people who didn't have any experience in opening a restaurant, or had ever worked in the restaurant business. And they're like, oh, I throw a great dinner party, or, I make a great cocktail, I'm going to open a restaurant. And that just, so just make sure you know what you're getting into, and don't do it because you want to become rich, because that's also not going to happen. I would say, but, as far as general advice for anybody who wants to do it, or starting up their own business, make sure you have time to dedicate it to it, and you really know what your business is, what you're selling, what your product is. You can't have a vague product. Listen to advice from other people who've done this. People are just trying to help you. They're trying to give you information so you don't make the same mistakes they might have made, or maybe this info they're going to give you is going to help you jump 4 spots ahead, closer to opening. Just listen to the advice from the people who've been down this road before. And just really stay honest to yourself and to who you are and what you want to do in your mission. Don't, while yes, listen to advice, don't let people change that core value that you have, and, your product, if you really believe in it. And then do some research. Research is always good. Mm-hmm. Don't go into it blindly.
Very good advice. And I appreciate your perspective, and definitely I know the viewers do as well. And then my other question for you is that what resources are out there that you recommend, whether those be blogs, podcasts, news outlets, anything you recommend?
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm kind of an old-fashioned kind of guy, so I prefer face-to-face chat, talk time. So I don't read a lot of blogs or do a lot of research on the internet. I do most of my research when it comes to recipe ideas through cookbooks. I would say, the best resource again is the people that are around you who've been down this road. I really feel like that is your best resource. So don't be ashamed to admit you might not know something. When I opened Amilinda, I had never opened a restaurant before. So a lot of this, the first 6 months was learning as you go. Oh, I didn't think about this specific thing that was going to be an issue and need to be taken care of. I think your best resource is the people around you who've already done this. Mm-hmm. Go find it. If you're, going to open a restaurant, go talk to somebody who already has one, maybe your favorite little place in your neighborhood, and go talk to them and say, hey, I want to come in, I'm going to have dinner. I'd like to pick your brain about what this process is like. Because it's also different in every city. Regulations are different from city to city. So it's good to talk to somebody who's already been through this.
Right. And I've definitely found that people are very happy to talk about what they know, at least from my experience. Milwaukee is kind of similar, I'm assuming.
Yeah, for the most part, people in Milwaukee are pretty friendly. And, when I first moved here, and I didn't really know anybody in the food scene, but I would go out and eat, and then I would introduce myself and I would ask questions, and everybody was really, really great about it.
Right. Well, so one last question I have for you before we part ways. I would like to know, how can we support you? Is there anything that you can ask the viewers, anything we can help you out with?
So right now, what not only Amorlinda needs, but thousands of restaurants around the country, is that we need the restaurant relief fund to be replenished. I'm sure you've heard about the story and what happened with the SBA. So what we really need right now is everybody to call their senator. Just call your senators, tell them that the restaurant relief fund needs to be replenished. Your favorite little restaurant needs this. Everybody loves a restaurant. Now it's time for the consumers to show how much they love restaurants. And just that would be the big thing right now. Go visit your local neighborhood restaurant. Be patient. There's a huge staffing shortage right now. So if you go to a restaurant and they're asking you to wait, or, your table's not quite ready, or taking a little bit longer for you to get your food, or even have your server come to, just understand that restaurants are understaffed at the moment, and we're all doing the best we can. Don't be a meanie. Don't be nasty when you go out to eat at restaurants. Remember, this is people's livelihood, and they're there to serve you, but they're also human beings, and they deserve respect just like everybody. I would say that's what everybody can do right now, but definitely call your senator, please.
Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate that. Great call to action. So that is all the time we have for today. So thank you, Greg, so much for telling us more about Amilinda, and I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Hopefully I'll see you in Milwaukee at some point and come have dinner with us.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
Excellent.